Hello and welcome to another episode of Real Rich Advice. Today we're talking about if you own an investment property, you're considering selling it. Who do you sell it to? Do you sell it to the tenant? Is that the right decision? Or do you have the tenant move out, put the property on the market? Or obviously there's always the option of having the tenant there and trying to sell it with the tenant in. So we're going to talk a little bit about the cases for each. So we've owned investment properties before, correct? We have sold properties after we've owned them as rental properties.
Correct.
And with that, we decided most recently to take the property and put it on the market and not sell directly to the tenant. Talk a little bit about what made that decision.
Sure. Well, we had a situation where the tenants were in the property. We offered it to them for sale, and they weren't really interested in buying it. And at the price, the property needed some work. At the price they were willing to pay for it, decided to take a gamble. So the tenant willingly moved out, and then we renovated the property, which in this one required a new kitchen, new bathroom, paint, flooring. Really jazzed
How long
it
did
up.
that take?
The construction.
How long was it supposed to take?
Well, there were two of them, but the more efficient one took about 6 weeks from beginning to end. And
Okay.
then, so put some money into it, put the property on the market once it was cleaned up and looked beautiful, but it was a gamble. Ended up getting more money than it had we sold it to the tenant. Now there was the other one that we had a contractor that took 5 months, and that one, the gamble probably did not pay off.
So that sort of goes to our argument sometimes that a major renovation is not always what nets you the most amount of money.
Doesn't always
Because
work.
these were condos, you had condo fee, you had mortgage, and you had obviously
Carrying
the
costs,
loss
loss
rent.
of rent.
Yeah. So with that, that sort of flips it to this argument where it might actually be better to sell it directly to the tenant.
And tell us about that.
If you're the tenant, there's an advantage because you don't have to move, and you obviously might be able to buy the property for a little bit less than you would if you had to buy the exact same property on the market. The reasons being, like you talked about earlier, if you sell to the tenant, you don't have that gap where you have to
loss rent. Yeah,
you have no lost
Adds
rent,
up.
so you don't have the gap where you're carrying costs of the property, taxes, condo fee if it has one, insurance, all that, the mortgage. All that stuff is not being captured by the tenant. So there's a savings. If we took the example of a property that was, for example, worth $2,000 a month, in the best scenario, $2,000 a month in rent, even in the best scenario, if you have the tenant leave, you take 2 weeks to paint it, you put the property on the market, it takes 2 weeks to sell it, you're under contract, it takes 4 weeks to go to settlement, that's a total of 60 days at least. And with that, you're going to lose, it's going to cost you about $4,000. So if you're selling to the tenant, you obviously want to make sure that you're going to get more than $4,000 if you go on market. Otherwise, it makes more sense to sell to the tenant. And obviously, this makes even more sense if the rent's higher, $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
That same 2 months costs you a full $20,000. Furthermore, sometimes there's a little bit of opportunity to, obviously, if you can sell directly to the tenant, you might be able to save some commission. Sometimes it's still better to bring in an agent just to help paper the deal.
Absolutely.
We were recently involved in this, which was one of the reasons we did this video, and we came in to just help the two parties get to the same place. There's a little bit of savings for the seller and, of course, the tenant. And with all that, everybody sort of came out as a win-win. And then you also ended up selling it for a little bit less than market. But if you sort of took out all these costs and everything, you sold it for at or maybe even a little bit above market, which really is a great thing because the seller nets more, the tenant pays less. If there's truly something where everybody wins, that's it.
Yeah, the pieces of that puzzle fit together nicely. The two that I had, one of them fit together, one of them didn't.
So,
it really depends.
As real estate agents, we can't say we're flawless in our own real estate advice, but
It happens.
it is what it is. And lastly, you want to talk a little bit about the decision, maybe you sell it with the tenant in it.
Yeah, you can sell with a tenant in it. It depends on your tenant. Some tenants have beautiful furnishings and gorgeous furniture, and they keep the place nice and clean. And then you have some tenants that the furniture doesn't always match the house properly, and not every tenant is the most cooperative person. And sometimes they leave the place, maybe a dish in the sink here and there, and it just doesn't look as nice as a properly staged, professionally staged property. Or a lot of the owners that we deal with also have nice furniture. So like everything in real estate,
it depends. So with that, that's another episode of Real Rich Advice. We hope this information was helpful. If you have any questions or have any comments, like us to cover another topic, feel free to drop a comment below or shoot us an email, give us a call. We're happy to take questions, answer anything, and we'll see you next time.
thanks.
All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of... Were you laughing?
I was looking at you. I was waiting for the cue. We'll start over again?
Yeah.
Okay.